DrNiiQuartelai. Pro tip, just type in Dr. Nee, DrNii, and boom, bam, boom, I pop right on up. Be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And then there we are for your listening pleasure. Subscribe to a More Perfect Union podcast powered by KBLA Talk 1580 and never, ever, ever miss an episode. We do our part to keep you informed, providing news, not noise, and expert analysis and interviews with leaders on the front lines. That is what you can expect from us every episode, from the White House to your house. We got you covered. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't share just a few quick announcements. One, go out and purchase Kamala, the Motherland, and Me, my new book that's out. It's been out since July 23rd. And because of each and every one of you, all of our leaders, learners, and listeners, it is an Amazon bestseller. It is an Amazon #1 new release, and we want to keep it there. And so it is required reading for this moment that we find ourselves in as a country. It is an opportunity to re-examine our assumptions about Madam Vice President, the continent of Africa, and ourselves. And while you are ordering books, you may want to order The Covenant with Black America, curated by our very own Tavis Smiley. I think Tavis is going to be hosting an event and include a book signing event on Wednesday, August 14th from 6 to 9 p.m. in Los Angeles. Admission is free. And so if you just go to KBLA1580.com, you can register and have a chance to meet our favorite Tavis Smiley and friends in person. Now it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, Illinois Governor Pritzker making some news and taking a stand while he's at it. Have you all been following the Sonia Massey shooting? Well, clearly Illinois Governor Pritzker has, and that's why he's calling for the sheriff to resign after Sonia Massey was killed. Illinois Governor Pritzker and Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton are formally calling for Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell to resign, expressing frustration with how the sheriff has responded to the shooting death of Sonia Massey. Much scrutiny has been placed on Campbell, who hired former Deputy Sean P. Grayson in May 2023. Despite his 2 prior DUI convictions, Grayson has been charged by a grand jury with 3 counts of first-degree murder after shooting Massey in her home on July 6th. Campbell has failed to explain how he ended up hiring the deputy sheriff, who has resigned from other departments. This is what the governor said in an unrelated press conference in Chicago just Wednesday morning. The governor went on to say he has failed to put forward reforms that clearly need to be made. And in a statement, Pritzker said he was calling for Campbell's resignation so the Springfield and Sangamon County community can begin to rebuild and restore trust between the citizens and the sheriff's department. Sticking around in the Midwest, Cori Bush loses her race. The Michigan showdown is all set. Here are some takeaways from Tuesday's pivotal 2024 primaries. We know that Vice President Harris has tapped Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to serve as her running mate. But that was the only critical 2024 moment of the day. States from Missouri to Michigan and Washington also held pivotal primary races that could set the stage for November. Now, progressive Democrats were handed their second major defeat of the year when Representative Cori Bush, the Democrat of Missouri, lost her St. Louis primary. Anti-Trump Republicans, meanwhile, are trying to notch a victory after one of the few remaining lawmakers who voted to impeach the former president fights to advance to a general election battle against a MAGA-affiliated opponent. A handful of other House and Senate primaries in Michigan and Washington paved the way for heated matchups that could determine the balance of power in the nation's capital next year. And so you heard about Cori Bush. We know that also Representative Jamal Bowman Democrat of New York, was defeated during his June primary. And so those are two members of the squad that were sort of picked off in part because they became targets of AIPAC, a super PAC aligned with the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, spent millions of dollars against their reelection bids and was victorious on Tuesday in Missouri's race, also known as the second most expensive House primary in U.S. history. We also should note that in Michigan, Representative Elise Slotkin, a former Intel official and acting secretary in the Defense Department, who currently represents Michigan's 7th congressional district, will face off against her fellow House member, Republican Representative Mike Rogers, a former law enforcement officer who represents Michigan's 8th district. What that means is our friend Hill Harper did not win that race as he was competing to join the U.S. Senate representing the people of Michigan. And so those were some big takeaways from yesterday's election. Moving along, Kansas's Calvin Hayden claimed that foreign entities had manipulated the vote, but never shared the evidence publicly. I'm talking about the sheriff who embraced election conspiracy theories. He loses the GOP primary. Hayden took a keen interest in the election system after Donald Trump lost Johnson County in 2020's White House race. And despite later acknowledging that he initially hadn't known anything about elections, his office claimed to have received hundreds of tips alleging fraud in our elections, end quote, and launched a secretive multi-year investigation. Though he often refused to discuss the probe publicly, even as the years dragged on without any charges being filed or evidence shared, Hayden frequently told attendees of conservative events about quote-unquote shenanigans in the rigged election system and about foreign entities manipulating the vote how they want. And so this conspiracy theorist lost his GOP primary, and this may be a sign of what is to come in November. And it's important to note a judge has dismissed most claims in the federal lawsuit filed by a Black Texas student punished over his hairstyle. We've been tracking the story closely. A federal judge on Tuesday dismissed most of the claims in a lawsuit filed by a Black high school student who alleged that school officials committed racial and gender discrimination when they punished him for refusing to change his lifestyle, his hairstyle, rather. The ruling was another victory in the case for the Barbers Hill School District near Houston, which has said its policies restricting hair length for male students instills discipline while teaching grooming and respect for authority. But in his order, U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Brown questioned whether the school district's rule causes more harm than good. Finally, a cyber squatter has sold the Harris Walls domain for, get this, $15,000. I didn't even know this was a thing. Cyber squatters, did y'all know this was a thing? I didn't know this was a thing. NPR is reporting that by the time Vice President Harris announced Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate on Tuesday, the website harriswalls.com was already taken. In fact, it was snatched up 4 years ago. And not by either candidate, but by a politically savvy, Brooklyn-based millennial. Jeremy Green Iche, 36, is a trademark attorney who also runs an online marketplace where people can buy and sell registered trademarks and domains. And he probably is better known as a domain investor. Who knew? My goodness. A couple times a year, Iche goes on a buying spree on sites like GoDaddy.com and Name.com, purchasing domain names for all sorts of hypothetical presidential tickets. Talk about a hobby. And in August 2020, anticipating that Harris might run again in the future, he snapped up 15 Harris-related domain names, combined with every sort of folksy white man that he could think of that was big at the time. Those include Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, Washington Governor Jay Inslee, and of course Walz. And so if y'all are looking to pick up a new hobby, that just might be it. When we come forward, I am really delighted to welcome Reverend Lennox Yearwood Jr. He'll be joining me. He is the president and CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus, a minister, an activist, an Air Force veteran, and a climate justice partner for KBLA Talk 1580. I want to get his take on Vice President Harris's selection of a Veep in the 2024 race. And there is so much trending in the headlines related to climate change that we really need Reverend Yearwood to help us make it make sense. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580, live from Martha's Vineyard. More when we come forward.
The station you turn to when you had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580. Tavis is like George and Wheezy. He's moving on up. Last year, Tavis was number 45 on the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America. Wait for it. The 2024 list was recently released, and Tavis has jumped to number 33 on the list of the nation's most important talkers, making him the highest-ranked African-American on the coveted roster. Congratulations to Tavis Smiley from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got you black.
We're thrilled to announce that the Dear Future Wifey podcast is now available on the Urban One Podcast Network. This show, hosted by Latiris R. Whitfield, explores the journey of discovering and rediscovering love and relationships. With over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, Dear Future Wifey has become a prototype for discussions about love and relationships. Learn how to rediscover love, heal, and have faith in relationships. Go to urbanonepodcast.com or wherever you get your podcast.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Try Venus for pubic hair and skin, the razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Discover the full regimen of products at GilletteVenus.com.
Did you know your life insurance is an asset you can sell? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. For almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. And at AbacusPays.com, we've created a free policy value calculator so you can find out the worth of your policy in just seconds. There are no fees and no obligations. Get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Learn more at AbacusPays.com.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent. So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle.
Tide Free and Gentle has no dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on her skin.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle. This back-to-school season, Tide and Downy are giving back with $1.5 million in scholarships. Enter to win. No purchase necessary. US/DC 17+. End September 30th. Rules. Tide.com/scholarship/official rules.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and really delighted to welcome someone who is no stranger to KBLA Talk 1580. He is no stranger to the movement for climate justice and environmental justice. I'm talking about Reverend Lennox Yearwood Jr. He is president and CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus, a minister, an activist, an Air Force veteran, and a good brother. Most importantly, Reverend Yearwood, thank you for
I appreciate that. Oh man, it's so good to be with you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm here live at Martha's Vineyard.
I love that. I love that.
And even though it's a little cloudy today, thanks for bringing in the sunshine, something that you are known to do. Last time we saw each other was at the KBLA Climate Summit in Los Angeles, of course, organized by our friend and brother Tavis Smiley, featuring so many critical voices that are reminding us that climate justice is not an issue that flies over the heads of Black folks. It's not an issue that is foreign to Black folks. We are well aware, and we are on the front lines of the effects of climate change. We're also on the front lines of the solutions. And so talk to us a little bit, first things first, your take on the VP's pick in the 2024 race. Just yesterday, Vice President Harris announced that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz be her running mate for the 2024 race. He has a track record when it comes to climate-related work. What's your take on her pick and his track record?
Well, let me just piggyback on something you said about KBLA, and that's so important that I think that symposium that Tavis Smiley had was so important. I think that unfortunately people don't know that Black people, people of color, are on the front lines of the climate crisis. They're not understanding that we're the ones who are impacted by the pollution, that we're impacted because 68% of Black people live within 30 miles of a coal-fired power plant. They're not understanding that they're putting toxins and landfills in our communities, literally that meaning they're called sacrifice zones and vulnerable communities. So I think one of the things there is that the issue around climate and environmental justice, I'm so glad that, man, this station literally understood that and brought leaders in that and into that conversation. And that leads into where right now Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are no doubt about it, that Governor Walz and Vice President Harris are without a doubt some of the most productive and understanding folks fighting for a livable planet. They understand this year, last year, Vice President Harris cast a deciding vote to pass the Inflation Reduction Act, which put literally millions and billions of dollars into helping us to transition from fossil fuels to clean energy, which people will call one of the most progressive, important climate legislations we've ever seen. And so I think that for us, having someone or anyone who is a climate denier is someone who is basically saying that folks who are most impacted by the climate crisis do not deserve to live. And in saying that, they are then saying to the fossil fuel industry that your business plan means a detriment to communities of color. And so having someone, anyone in office who understands what it means to die from cancer or asthma or emphysema or all types of diabetes because of pollution, we need that person to be in office. And we need climate champions who understand the stakes and to be in this position that they're going for, obviously president and vice president, at this critical time.
And speaking of climate champions, we know that Governor Walz is widely known as one of the strongest climate champions out there. Walz is, according to The Guardian, has forged a robust climate record during his 2 gubernatorial terms, most notably by signing one of the strongest green energy bills in the law last year. For people who are less familiar, the policy requires Minnesota to eliminate carbon from its electricity generation by 2040, obtaining 100% of its utilities from carbon-free resources. Only a handful of states are requiring the switch to carbon-free electricity to occur at such a rapid pace. Reverend Yearwood, help us make sense out of this. Why is this a big deal for the people of Minnesota, particularly communities of color that we know are disproportionately impacted by climate related disasters, by increases in air pollution and so forth?
Well, in Minnesota in particular, it's vital because we know Minnesota is a place where we all saw horrifically the killing of George Floyd. And in that, there's a connection that climate justice is racial justice, and racial justice is climate justice. And for those who say, well, Rev, explain, what do you mean by that? What that means is that while we saw him saying, and in a very, I apologize, I know sometimes it's triggering for some, but him saying that I can't breathe, literally because he was being choked to death in front of our eyes. That same level of I can't breathe was also happening in those same communities in Minnesota with pollution. And it's happening with small children and young adults and seniors who are also saying they can't breathe because of the toxins and the particulate matters in the atmosphere. And actually, we know that more people of color die yearly from air pollution than they do from police brutality. And so this has to be a concern. And so Governor Walz understood that. He understood the connection, the extractive mentality that goes within not seeing someone's humanity, both from a police misconduct component, but also from a corporate misconduct position, understanding that they are literally in a position where they are killing lives. And let me go further, because now he's in a position where he's running for the, obviously, vice president for president, that they're in a position right now that they understand that we need to have legislation that is curbing our reduction on fossil fuels. And so Vice President Harris already signaled that she's going to do everything she can. She comes from the great state of California. She understands what it means to live next to the oil refineries that are down in LA. Thank goodness LA just actually passed legislation to stop that. She understands what it means to live in the communities like Chevron up in the Bay Area who are polluting those communities. She understands that. And most importantly, as a former prosecutor, she's had to try to prosecute big oil, who understood the health impacts and still were going forth and polluting. So she did that as well. And now in Keith Ellison, who the Attorney General in Minnesota, in that great state, he's doing it now as well, where he's suing big oil because millions of people are dying because of their greed and they're keeping us dependent on fossil fuels. Very similar to how tobacco was. So people will know the precedent there. The precedent there is that we saw this with big tobacco and how they were understanding what it was doing to our communities, putting cigarettes for small children or putting them into certain markets with certain advertising. Big oil, big coal, big gas is doing the same thing. But now they're being held accountable. And that's why it's critically important to have politicians in these positions who have enough courage to hold them accountable for what they've done to our communities.
And speaking of, creating change and progress and access and opportunity in our communities, we know that during his tenure, the governor also funded clean energy career training and allocated over $2 billion to natural resources, to climate and energy projects in a bill that's been compared to the Inflation Reduction Act that you just mentioned. And so, part of what I'm hearing you say is that a potential Harris-Walz administration could really help to supercharge, some of the interventions that are afoot, that are a model for the country when it comes to combating the effects of climate change and investing more in climate resilience.
That's the exciting part, because to transition from one energy sector to the other, it's going to take resources and money. It's a change. The Rockefellers were made through Standard Oil, and they have become billionaires because of that. And we understand that there are many folks who become billionaires and millionaires because of oil and gas. Well, we have to, but at some point in time, even if you don't believe in climate change, the reality of fossil fuels is that it's going to run out. So you have to, at some point in time, transition from one entity to the other. And that's happening now. What's different here, particularly for our communities, we can be at the forefront of this conversation. And I think that's what you're seeing with Governor Walz, what you're seeing with Vice President Harris. What you're seeing is that they understand, and this is what we have of this legislation called Justice 40. Justice 40 is federal legislation that says that 40% of those resources that are coming, that need to be to help that community, that 40% of that money needs to go back to that community. So in other words, if you're from Compton, 40% of that money has to go back to Compton to help you to do this work. That's what Governor Walz and Vice President Harris are doing. And that's why this moment is so critical.
I want to pick up on the Justice 40 initiative. I also want to get Reverend Yearwood's take on some of the climate deniers that are really rife. Congress is rife with them. And we have an opportunity to do something about that in November, I suspect. I want to learn what Reverend Yearwood may have in mind. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
Quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Maryland Governor Wes Moore has signed a state of preparedness declaration ahead of the remnants of Tropical Storm Debbie arriving in the state. As of Tuesday, the path of the storm remained uncertain, but possible effects in Maryland could include heavy rain, high winds, inland, and tidal flooding. In making the declaration, the governor is directing the Department of Emergency Management to coordinate the comprehensive preparation of state government ahead of the potential impacts from the storm. Governor Moore, who is Black, says residents and visitors should monitor local weather forecasts, remain vigilant, and be prepared to follow safety instructions from emergency officials. The Montgomery, Alabama City Council is pushing significant pay raises for all police officers. Members voted Tuesday night to override a veto from Mayor Stephen Reed, who did not want to include captains and majors in a 15% salary increase. Instead, Reed, who is Black, wanted to give the higher-ranking officers a 5% cost of living increase. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer custom-made faux wood and real wood blinds and shutters, cellular shades, Roman shades, bamboo shades, exterior shades, and more, all at factory direct prices. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Chargers coach Jim Harbaugh continues to be a target of the NCAA. Wednesday morning, the NCAA penalized Harbaugh with a 4-year show cause order for recruiting violations when he was at the University of Michigan. Harbaugh denied any wrongdoing during his press conference on Tuesday. The penalty means Harbaugh cannot coach in the NCAA until 2028 if he wants to go back to college. Harbaugh has a 5-year deal with the Chargers worth $80 million. Former NBA great Charles Barkley has changed his mind about retiring from broadcasting. Barkley had announced that the upcoming NBA season on TNT would be his last. Barkley is hopeful that TNT can continue its association with the NBA. The NBA has a new broadcast deal that does not include TNT for the first time in 35 years. TNT is suing the NBA to remain part of the broadcast package. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Environmental justice is racial justice. Environmental justice is social justice. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
Join Black Women for Wellness 25th Annual Reproductive Justice Conference on August 15th at the California Endowment Center. Unite to protect Black women's rights and become an advocate for change. Tickets on sale now at bwwla.org. That's bwwla.org.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chucha opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chucha's Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey in conversation with Reverend Yearwood, President and CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus. We have been talking about some of the movement building that is afoot when it comes to combating climate change. And we've been talking about the promise of a Harris-Walz administration in terms of supercharging some of this work. We were just talking about climate deniers before the break, Reverend Yearwood, in which case in Congress, there are a lot of them. We were one of the architects of the Vote or Die initiative to get people out to vote. What solutions do you want to offer our audience in terms of helping to do something significant about getting some of those climate deniers out of the way so that we can take advantage of this moment to supercharge the climate change movement?
Yeah, people ask me all the time on the road. They ask, what can I do, Rev, in regards to this climate crisis? They says we see the wildfires, we see the droughts, we hear about the hurricanes that are being supercharged. We hear about the heat waves that are happening both here in America and abroad. Just crazy stories. What can I do? I tell them every time. They said, do I need to go out here and put solar panels on my? I said, that's good. That's nothing wrong. Put solar panels on your roof. Should I go get something? Stop using plastic. 100%. Plastics are fossil fuels. Please stop. We need to curb single-use plastics. But the number one thing that anybody who listens to me right now can do to help to stop this climate crisis, that is to vote. That is to vote. And this election, more than any election, is clear between those two choices. There's a lot of other issues, but this one, in regards to a livable planet, a planet that we as humans can move about in a way that we have been doing for hundreds of thousands of years. This is that moment right now. And that means getting out to vote. And so, as was mentioned, you're right. We have, I think, the Guardian, Center for American Progress did a study, and it was put in the Guardian, in which it looked at there were 23 members of the Senate who were climate deniers, and 100 members. It's almost hard to imagine this. 100 members who are climate deniers in the House.
That's right.
To kind of explain that would be the equivalent of someone saying that there's 23 members in the Senate and 100 members of the House who still think that we should have slavery. If you heard that, you'd be like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. The same thing. To be a climate denier in 2024 is to literally be so backwards, so out of touch. That is the equivalent of saying that those 23 senators, those 100 members of Congress, believe that we should still have slavery. And obviously, we shouldn't have slavery. And obviously, we should do something about the climate crisis. And so we need to just make sure that everyone who has that kind of backward mentality needs to be removed from office. I believe that if you are a climate denier, that is disqualifying, because that means you are not concerned about what will happen to people in the worst of natural disasters.
I mean, look, preach, Rev. And I really appreciate you putting it in those sort of explicit terms, because the consequences, the generational consequences of the decisions that these 123 members of Congress, you said 100 members in the House of Representatives alone, 23 senators, that's a lot of power to halt the progress that so many of our communities just can't wait for.
Yeah, no, it's unthinkable. So I mean, I think this is why this is like, and at the top of the ticket. I mean, let's be very clear. That's just the House. Those running for the executive branch, Vance and Trump, are climate deniers. They are explicit in that. I think Trump sometimes waffles behind. He got some money from Elon Musk, so he wants to go get an EV now. I mean, it's just crazy talk. But I mean, it's clear that and let's also be clear. A lot of these folks probably don't believe in. They believe in the climate crisis, and they're not climate deniers. But what they do believe in is getting their pockets greased from money, no pun intended. And so they forget conveniently. But what's crazy about that is that in Texas, for example, we have all these folks who are climate deniers. At the same time, when they had the hurricane, it just came through there, and then that knocked out the grid. You know, they're trying to slow walk. Right now, there's a hurricane that's going through Florida. Same situation. DeSantis and these climate deniers are still, and it's just horrible. Like, we don't need to have someone in positions to have to constantly, every time we got a disaster, try to figure it out.
You're absolutely right, and we have the power to do something about that. And speaking of the power that we have, I mean, it's not lost on me, and it shouldn't be lost on our leaders, learners, and listeners that we're experiencing the hottest ocean temperatures in 400 years. An existential threat to the Great Barrier Reef. We know that the Guardian has reported that scientists have analyzed long-lived corals in and around the reef that keep a record of temperatures hidden in the skeleton and matched them to modern observations. And the research published in the prestigious journal Nature used climate models to find extreme temperatures of recent decades could not have happened without an extra greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, caused mostly by burning fossil fuels. And so I'm looking at your hat. It says hip hop versus fossil fuels. This is an important fight because it represents an existential threat to the planet. What gems can you leave us with as we come to a close? What gems can you leave our leaders, learners, and listeners with to arm them to be able to have productive, constructive conversations with folks that maybe don't put climate change on the front burner in terms of issues that are important to them, their families, and their communities?
Yeah, it's on the front burner. I mean, it's going to be there one way or the other. We're going to see it. As you mentioned, our coral reefs are bleaching. We've never seen these kind of temperatures before in the ocean. What we saw with many of our people going to Mecca and dying on the way to Mecca. What we see now in Las Vegas and Arizona and Phoenix, literally temperatures are 128 degrees. The sidewalk was 160 degrees, literally burning people. Homeless was sticking to the sidewalk. And I'm sorry to be graphic, but that's the moment that we're in. I would just say that we have to have folks, we would love folks to go to the Hip Hop Caucus, join us. We're trying to move beyond petrochemicals. We need to transition from fossil fuels. Please join us in that campaign. We're doing everything we can by creating music and content and documentaries, working with folks from Common to Wanda Sykes. Man, we're trying to do everything we can. So join us there, Hip Hop Caucus, and be a part of the movement in that regard. And I would just lastly say that, Doc, our parents fought for equality, so that we could, drink from the water fountain and be, go to the same schools. Right now, our generation we still fighting for equality, but right now we're fighting for existence. And if we don't get it right on this election coming up on November 5th in literally about 90 days, then existence and our ability to exist on this planet will take a very serious hit. So please vote. Please vote like your life depends on it, because it does. We need climate champions at the highest position in this land.
You heard it there from Reverend Yearwood. I want to keep him around just a little bit longer. When we come forward, it's time to say the quiet part out loud. In Montana, if you can believe it, 911 calls reveal a hidden impact of heat waves on rural seniors. I'm going to share that story and get Reverend Yearwood's reaction when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys.
Let's take our auntie to the swap meet.
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
What if the conversation about menopause and bladder leaks didn't have to be a secret? Always Discreet helps you embrace this new chapter with confidence, offering a bladder leak solution that keeps you worry-free. Its rapid dry core quickly locks away even the biggest gushes with up to 0 leaks, 0 wet feel, and 0 odor. So you can jump, dance, sneeze, and laugh uninterrupted. Everyday protection for every level of leak. We've got you always. Try Always Discreet today.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
Now Martha Stewart for Skechers. When I make a dish or embark on a craft project, I always use the finest, most fabulous ingredients and materials. Which is why, when it comes to footwear, I love Skechers. Because Skechers is the comfort technology company and uses the most luxurious, innovative materials and designs to make wondrously comfortable footwear with all the fits and features like Arch Fit and Skechers' world-famous air-cooled memory foam. It's exactly the way I'd make shoes.
Find Skechers at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, services and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk. We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and it's time for the quiet part out loud. I'm joined today by Reverend Yearwood, President CEO of Hip Hop Caucus, also a climate justice partner to KBLA Talk 1580. This is the architect of the Vote or Die initiative. Y'all remember that? I remember that. And he is reminding us that we have some important business to do on November 5th. But first, NPR is reporting that in Montana, 911 calls reveal hidden impact of heat waves on rural seniors. Missoula is one of Montana's largest cities, but surrounded by rural mountain communities where cattle ranching is king. But despite the mountainous terrain and altitude, in recent years, this region has experienced punishing summer heat waves. It's been difficult for many residents, urban and rural, to adapt to the warming climate and new seasonal swings, and many don't have air conditioning and are prepared for the new pattern of daytime temperatures hovering in the 90s for days, even weeks on end. Dehydration, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, and abnormalities in heart rate and blood pressure, are among the many health complications that can develop from excessive exposure to high temperatures. It can happen anywhere and to anyone. And so this is an example of an issue.
Yeah.
It's not just important to folks in urban communities. It's important to our brothers and sisters and siblings, our fellow Americans in rural communities. And so, Reverend Yearwood, I want to give you a chance to say the quiet part out loud and connect the dots between the work of the Hip Hop Caucus, the people of urban and rural communities alike.
It's very serious. And I know that I've said a lot of things that have been triggering. These are not easy things to talk about. Talking about folks who are in Montana, seniors who haven't needed an air conditioning unit, who are now literally, in many cases suffering in silence in their homes, and they're trying to call for 911. It's the distance, and they're dying from heat stroke and other ailments. Hypertension is being exacerbated. So there's a connection here. We know this. We saw this recently in East Palestine, Ohio, through the train derailment. That vinyl chloride, which is a petrochemical, which was hauled from Houston, imploded in Ohio in that community. And it just shows the connection of why we got to transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. But also, let me just say this too, and I think this is important in the work that I've seen from my work. I'm originally from Louisiana, and I was born not too far outside of Quartey. Faith is important. There's actually, I know this is KBLA, so I know this is LA. Hollywood is y'all's thing. There's actually a phenomenal Hollywood actress and actor and Grammy-nominated singer who was actually starting to connect the dots between climate and faith. Her name is Antonique Smith. Many of y'all probably know her. She played Faith on Notorious, but she and many other roles. But she now was actually connecting the dots because she has been an archivist doing work around this with the community, particularly around Hollywood and trying to green Hollywood. But now she's going out to our Black churches and mosques and faith centers to understand that these conversations are very, very hard. And so I know that she has some things started. So stay tuned for that. I will just shout out. I know the name, so I think you can go sign up. It's Climate Revival, so you can go to climaterevival.org and sign up. But I just want to applaud all of those who are using faith as a mechanism for us to cope with some of these issues. But that's the key thing. There are literally senior citizens, people who have special needs. There are folks who are in the jails we have seen who are literally cooking to death. There is nothing when humanity is allowing that to happen. So we must do all we can to fix that madness.
And in terms of the people that are on the front lines helping to fix this madness, helping to advance opportunities to respond to changes in climate, who are powerful demonstrations of climate resilience, who are some of the climate justice partners that you're working with? We know KBLA is one of them, but
KBLA
let's shout
is
some
a
people
great
out.
one. Rise St. James with Miss Sharon, who actually is actually a Time 100 award winner. Rosetta Ozane from the Vessel Project in Louisiana. There are some other groups from We Act for Climate Justice. We had Peggy Shepard who came, Dr. Bob Bullard from the Bullard Center out of Texas Southern doing amazing research, Dr. Beverly Wright from the D-South Center. I mean, there's just some amazing people who are doing some great work and centered in Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. And so the Hip Hop Caucus, I mean, y'all know what we've been doing. We've been doing it. And I love Hip Hop Caucus. I just want to thank them for connecting democracy and climate. Man, that's such an important thing, and using culture as well. So shout out to Hip Hop Caucus and all that they're doing regarding creating films and getting folk out to vote.
Amen. Thank you, Hip Hop Caucus. Reverend Yearwood, I want to give you the final word on this. While we've been on air, ABC News has reported that Trump told Walz in 2020 he was very happy with his handling of the George Floyd riots. In the hours after VP Harris announced Governor Walz the running mate, allies of the former president rushed to denigrate the Minnesota Democrat, seizing on criticism of his handling of the riots in the wake of the George Floyd murder in May 2020. But Trump expressed support for Walz's handling of the protests, according to a recording of a phone call obtained by ABC News telling a group of governors that Walz, quotes, dominated, and praising his leadership as an example for other states, saying, quotes, I know Governor Walz is on the phone and we spoke, and I fully agree with the way he handled it in the last couple of days. That's what Trump told a group of governors on June 1st, 2020. What's your reaction to that?
I think it follows suit to what the governor of Maryland, who was Republican, Governor Larry Hogan, who also came out immediately and was very good in endorsing Governor Walz. We're not surprised by that. I mean, obviously, they want to hide good work. And, there are times when in those moments, Trump in that position realized it was good work. Now, in his position, he wants to pull from that. So what we need to do is that we need to put people who do good work in office. And anybody who actually creates a highway in the name of Prince I'm loving your glasses too. I don't know if they can see your glasses, but they can see it. You know what I'm saying? It's remember you get the Prince, it's not quite purple, but you know what I'm saying? It's off the chain. So so any governor who creates a highway after Prince can't be all bad.
or has a Beyonce day. Signs the proclamation pronouncing it's Beyonce Day. I mean, he's meeting the moment left and right, whether we're talking about climate change or we're talking about racial justice, whether we're talking about women's reproductive rights. It's all on the ballot. And if you just do your research, you'll find that Governor Walz and Vice President Harris have been on the right side of those issues that so many of our leaders, learners, and listeners care so deeply about.
That's it. And this is our lunch counter moment for the 21st century. So let's do the right thing.
That's right. You heard it here from Reverend Yearwood. My thanks to you. Please come back again soon. We want to have you back definitely in the fall.
Always. Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
We will. We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to the village that helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer extraordinaire, Miles Lowe, our show producer, Robert Battles, and podcast publishing guru, Odell Bodie. Remember, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai and Quartey. You've been listening to A More Perfect Union.